Hello and welcome to Drill and Kill. That's correct, my friend. This is where we drill until we kill all the mistakes. So, without further ado, let's get on to our first problem. Alrighty, and here we go with our very first problem of this video. 378 divided by 28. As you see, I have my 2's and my 8's written. I also am going to estimate this up to 30, so I wrote my 3's as well. So the very first thing I want to do is go ahead and create my first area box, and I am going to put the 378 right inside the box and the 28 out here on the outside of the box. Next, I'm going to shrink this and move it out of the way so I have a little more room. And I'm looking at how many times 28 can go into 378. And 28 will not fit into 3, but it will fit into 37. So I'm going to get a place value holder for the 1's column here. So I'll put a 0 here, and that means I have a 0 here because 0 times 28 will give me 0. And then I'm looking at this, and I can see that 28 will only fit in here one time. So I'm going to put 20. I'm going to put a 1 right there. And then 1 times 28 will give me 28. And I'm ready to subtract. But before I do, I got to look for trouble coming. Clearly, I have no trouble here. I do have trouble coming here, though. So I'm going to borrow from the 3, turn that 3 into a 2, and turn the 7 into 17. And now I no longer have trouble coming, so I'm ready to add my next area box. And I'll do that right here. Plug that in right there. And next, I'm going to subtract. 8 minus 0 will give me 8. 17 minus 8 will give me 9. And 2 minus 2 zeros out, so I am good to go. Now I'm looking at 28, and it will go into 98, and I'm going to use 30 as my estimation number. So I'm going to come up here, and instead of 3's, I'm counting by 30's, okay? So this would be 30, 60, and 90. So I'm going to multiply by 3. So I'll plug a 3 right there, and bam, there we have it. Now I'm working with the real numbers. 3 times 8 is going to give me 24. I'm going to drop the 4 and carry the 2. So I'll drop the 4 right there and carry the 2 right up there. And then I've got 3 times 2, which is going to give me 6, plus 2 is going to give me 8. So I'm going to drop the 8 right there and get ready to subtract. I check for trouble coming. Whoa, come back here, crazy thing. I check for trouble coming, and I have no trouble at all. So I'm good to go. I'm going to add my next area box in here. And there we have it. 8 minus 4 is going to give me 4 right here. And 9 minus 8 is going to give me 1 right there. And now if I look here, I can see that 28 cannot go into 14. And since I'm not using remainders, I need to add a decimal and a 0. And we talked about this before, how I can add a decimal and 0 to any number without changing the value of that number. So I'm going to do that all the way up here. So I'll go decimal and a 0, decimal and a 0, decimal and a 0, decimal and a 0. Then I'm going to continue up and do decimal and a 0 here, decimal and a 0 here. And now I am in the tens column. I'm going to use the 140. I'm going to ignore that decimal point and see how many times 28 will go into 140. Once again, I'm going to use my 3's as my estimation, and I've got 30, 60, 90, 120. Then I got 150, which is too much, so I'm going to come back here to 120. So I'm going to plug a 4 right in there. So I'm going to go 4 there, but this is actually a 0.4 because I'm in the tenths column. And now I simply use the real number, so 4 times 8 is going to give me 32. I'm going to drop my 2 and carry my 3, so I'll drop my 2 here, and I'm going to carry my 3 right there. And then I've got 4 times 2, which is going to give me 8, plus 3 is going to give me 11. So I'm going to drop my 11 right there, and then I also drop my decimal because just like buttons on a shirt, I want to line up these decimals. So then I'm ready to first check for trouble coming, and I do have trouble coming right away because I cannot take 0 and subtract 2. So I'm going to borrow from this 4, turn that into a 3, and turn that 0 into 10, and now I am all good to go all the way through. So I will add my next area box and plug that in right there. And then I've got 10 minus 2 is going to give me 8. I'm going to drop my decimal, and 3 minus 1 is going to give me 2 right here. And then 1 minus 1 zeroes out. Let's go ahead and take a look up here, and lo and behold, 28 will fit into, I'm going to ignore the decimal, to 28 one more time, right? So I am going to add another, let me move this so that I got a little bit more room to work. And there we go. And now I'm going to add a decimal, a 0 decimal point and 1 more here, right? So 0 decimal point and 1. And then 1 times 28 will give me 28. And I do need to add that decimal like the buttons of a shirt. And then I'm going to subtract, and 2.8 minus 2.8 is going to zero out, my friends. So I am really about all done. All I have to do now is simply add up in this direction, and I get 1 in the tens column. I get 3 in the ones column. I'm going to bring my decimal point straight on up. And then I've got 4 and 1 is going to give me 5 right there. So I got a 5 there. And 13.5 is your answer. Hey, if you knew right away to go to 5, that's fine. If you use the 30 estimation, you would have done it like I did here. But if you happen to know that it went in there 5 times, that's perfectly fine. So long as you got 13.5 for your answer. So therefore, 378 divided by 28 equals 13.5. If you made a mistake anywhere along the way, no worries at all, my friends. Simply pause the video, fix your mistake. That is the fastest way to learn. And now, let's move on to our second problem of this video. And here we have it, 5/3, or 5 divided by 3. Now, if you notice, this fraction is what I call top-heavy. Some people call it improper. If your numerator is bigger than your denominator, then it's improper fraction, which can be changed into a mixed number, which would have a whole number and a fraction, or it can be changed into simply a decimal, where you'll have a number in your ones column and a number in the tenths and possibly hundredths column. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we would do this. This means also 5 divided by 3, and that's exactly what we're going to do, my friends. So let's go ahead and shrink that a little bit, and we're going to add our first area box in here, and I've got 5 being divided by 3, right? So can we take 3 and fit it into 5? And you betcha we can. We could fit it in there one time. Before I do that, I'm going to shrink this and move it over here. And then I'm going to plug my 1 right here, and then 1 times 3 will give me 3, right? So I've got 3 here, and I'm going to subtract. Before I do that, I need to create my next area box, and here we go, right? So 5 minus 3 is going to give me 2 right here, right? And then normally it would just be done, and actually, you know what you would get is your remainder over your divisor. So this would be equal to 1. This is the 1 whole here, right? And then 2 is your remainder, right? So let's just put that there. 2 over your divisor, 3, right? And this is the mixed number that is equivalent to 5/3, okay? But we're looking for a decimal, so let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to add a decimal here. Because 3 cannot fit into 2 now, so I got to move over to the tenths column. So I'm going to add a decimal and a 0, which means I got to add decimals and zeros up here, right? So decimal, 0, and a decimal and a 0, right? So now I'm in the tenths column, right? And I'm looking at how many times 3 can go into 20, right? So let's go ahead and look here. And I've got 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21 is too much. So I'm going to come back here to 18, and it's going to go in there 6 times, right? So I'm going to plug a 6 here, which really means I've got a 0.6, right? So now I'm multiplying 6 times 3, which I already know gives me 18. So I'm going to drop an 18 down here. And I've got to add my decimal in here, like the buttons of a shirt, right? And add my decimal right there. And then I'm going to subtract. Before I do, I have to look for any trouble coming. And I certainly have it with this 0 minus 8. So I'm going to borrow from the 2, turn that 2 into 1, and give this 0 an extra group of 10, which makes it 10 instead of 0, right? And now I'm ready to subtract. So I'll add my next area box. And we'll do that right here. And lo and behold, 10 minus 8 is going to give me 2. I'm going to drop my decimal and then my 0 right here. So now I'm looking at this and I can see, whoops, I want to shrink it a little bit more, okay? And now I can see that, you see how I got a 2 here, I made it into 20? I got a 2 here, I'm going to make it into 20. I'm going to have a looping factor here where I'm going to end up with all 6s here. But let's go ahead and do that one more time. So I've got a 0 here, which means I'm going to add a 0 to all of these right here, and up here. And now I'm looking at how many times 3 can go into this 20. I'm going to ignore the decimal for the estimation portion, right? And 3 will go into 20. We're going to find that it's going to go in there 6 times again for 18. So I'm going to drop a 6 in the hundredths column, which means I got to add the 0.06, right? And then 6 times 3, as we know, is 18. So I'm going to move this up, and make it a little bigger, and put the 18 there. And then I've got to add the decimal in, because once again, I'm lining them up like the buttons on a shirt. And once again, I'm going to get the same thing, aren't I? I've got trouble coming, so I'm going to borrow from the 2, turn it into a 1, turn this into 10, and I'm going to get a 2 again here, right? So I have got a cyclical pattern, which cyclical means goes round and round and round and round, and that's exactly what I've got happening here. So I can simply add these up, and let's go ahead and do that right now. I'm going to move this over here and draw my line, and I'm adding up in this direction, and I get a 1 here in the ones column. I add my decimal because that comes straight up. Then I got a 6 here, so I'm going to pull that 6 up, and then I've got another 6 here, so I'm going to pull that 6 up. And as we've learned earlier, when you're on this side of the decimal point, if you get the same number twice in a row, well, then you've got a repeating pattern like we've got here, and it's going to just happen forever and ever and ever and ever, my friend. So all you have to do is put a little line above that, and it means that that 6 is repeating forever and ever. Now you could also write this as 1.6 with the repeating sign above it, and that right there is your answer. Hey, so if you made a mistake anywhere along the way, no worries at all, my friend. Simply pause the video, fix your mistake. That is the fastest way to learn. And let's move on to our third problem of this video. And here we are with 315 divided by 75. As you see, I've got my 7s written and my 5s written, and I also wrote my 8s because I'm going to bump this up to 80 when estimating. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with our first area box, and we're going to plug the 315 right inside the box. The 75 goes on the outside of the box, and now we're looking at 75 and how many times it can go into 315. Before I do that, I'm going to shrink this and move it over to the side so I have a little more room to work. And 75 will not fit into 3. It will not fit into 30, so I am looking at 315. I'm going to use 80 as my estimation number, and that means I'm going to look up here and imagine that each of these digits have a 0, just like this one down here. So 80, 160, 240, 320 is a little too much, isn't it? So I'm going to have to come back here to 3 and multiply by 3 in the ones column here. So I'm going to multiply by 3, and then I take 3 times 5, which is going to give me 15. I'm going to drop the 5 and carry the 1. And then I've got 3 times 7, which is going to give me 21, plus this 1 here is going to give me 22. And then I'm going to subtract, but before I do, I got to look for any trouble coming. And I don't have it here, but I do have trouble coming here. So I'm going to borrow from this 3, turn that into a 2, turn that into 11. And now I am good to subtract, right? So I'm going to add my next area box right there. And then I get 5 minus 5 is going to give me 0. 11 minus 2 is going to give me 9. And 2 minus 2 zeroes out. So I am good to go. So now I'm looking at 75 and I go, hey, that can fit in there one more time, right? So I'm going to add another 1 right there. And then 1 times 75 will give me 75. So I drop that. And then I'm ready to subtract. Before I do, I always look for trouble coming, and bam, we got it, don't we? So I'm going to borrow from the 9, turn that 9 into an 8, and turn the 0 into 10, and now I'm good to go here and good to go here. So I will add my next area box and plug that in right there. And then 10 minus 5 is going to give me 5, and 8 minus 7 is going to give me 1. And then I'm going to look here and I go, oop, 75 cannot fit into 15. So I need to move over to the next column here, which since this is the ones column, I got to move to the tenths column. So that means I'm going to add a decimal and a 0. And I can do that to all these numbers all the way up. And just like the buttons of a shirt, when adding or subtracting, I'm going to use the same strategy and have the decimals all lined up here, right? So now for estimation, I'm going to ignore that decimal point and think of this as 150. And I happen to know, because I know 75 cents, right, will go in there 2 times exactly. However, since I'm using my estimation, I am going to go by my estimation, and I would get 80 and then 160, which as you see would be just a teeny too much. So I'm going to use that. If you knew, like I did, that 75 and 75 is 150, you could just put 2 there. But let's do it the way I just explained it. So I'm going to add the 0.1 here, and 1 times 75 will give me 75 down here. So I drop my 7 and my 5 and line up my decimals, and then I'm going to subtract. So before I do, I got to check for trouble coming, and I do have it. This is going to turn into 4, and this is going to turn into 10. And then I am ready to subtract. Before I do, I want to add my next area box. And there we have it. And then I get 10 minus 5 is going to give me 5 right here. I'm going to drop my decimal. 14 minus 7 is going to give me 7 right here. And then I'm going to come back up here and go, oh, lo and behold, just like I thought, it will go in here one more time, won't it? So I'm going to come back up here, and first of all, I'm going to get rid of this because I need a little bit more room, right? And then I'm going to do my 0.1 and add one more group of the 75, right? So I got 1 times 75 will give me 75 down here. So let's go ahead and do that. And 75, and then I drop my decimal to keep these decimals all in a straight line. 7.5 minus 7.5 is going to zero out. That's not a 6, that's a 0, my friend. Okay, and now I'm going to come up here and simply add these up like this, right? And I get 3 and 1 is going to give me 4 in the ones column. I'm going to drop my decimal, and then here I've got 1 and 1, which is going to give me 2. And right there you have it, my friend. Your answer is 4.2. So 315 divided by 75 equals 4.2. And that, my friends, is how you solve this problem. Hey, if you made a mistake anywhere along the way, no worries at all. Simply pause the video, fix your mistake. That is the fastest way to learn. And now, let's move on to our fourth and final problem of this video. And here we have it, 7/5. Now, this is what I call a top-heavy or improper fraction because your numerator is bigger than your denominator. So we're going to end up with a mixed number, a whole number, and then another fraction. However, in this case, we're looking at how to create a decimal, right? So we're going to take 7 divided by 5. And I'm going to show you both the mixed number and the decimal. But let's go ahead and start with our division problem. So the first thing I want to do is create my first area box, and I'm going to put the 7 in the center. No. So the 7 goes right there, and I'm going to bring my divisor, the 5, right out here. So next thing, I want to just shrink this and move it over here so I got a little bit more room. And now let's look here, and 5 can go into 7. It will go in there one time, and then 1 times 5 will give me 5 right here. So 5, and now I'm subtracting. So before I do, I need to add an area box in here. So I'm going to drop this area box right in here. And then I get 7 minus 5 is going to give me 2, right? And now, really, normally I would be done because this would be my remainder, right? And I'd have 1, and I take my remainder and put it over my divisor. So look here, because this is kind of cool. This is equal to 1 whole. Now this 1 goes right here. My remainder, right, the 2 will go over the divisor right here, the 5, right? So if you were going to change this into a mixed number, right, you'd be done already, right? But we're not doing that. We're actually going to change this into a decimal. So what I want to do is, since 5 will not fit into 2, I need to move over to the next column, which is our tenths column. So I'm going to add a decimal and a 0, and that means I'm going to add a decimal and a 0 to all of these, and I'm going to try and keep these decimals in a straight line like the buttons of your shirt, my friend. All right, so now I'm looking at 5, and can 5 go into 20? And if I look here, sure enough it can. It will go in there exactly 4 times. So I'm going to plug a 4 right there, and that means I'm actually multiplying by 0.4, right? And then 4 times 5 is going to give me 20. But I got to line up my decimals, right? So I'm going to put a decimal point right there. And then 2.0 minus 2.0 is going to give me 0. So that zero's out. So guess what? I am all done. That means all I have to do is add it up this way, and I get 1 in the ones column, and I'm going to bring my decimal point up, right? And then I've got the 4 right here, right? So I've got 4. And that right there is your answer. 7/5 is the same as 1.4, which is really also the same as 1 2/5. All 3 of these are equivalent, and I love it, right? Because that's very cool. All right, anyway, if you made a mistake anywhere along the way, no worries at all. Simply pause the video, fix your mistake, and you know it by now. That is the fastest way to learn. And until next time, I hope you have a fantastic day. I'll see you soon. Now to drill and kill counting by the numbers. Hey, if you already know all your counting by the numbers and you can do them all by heart, then you can stop the video right now and move on to the next problem. However, if you don't, let's drill and kill until we know them all. And now on to counting by the numbers. This is a great strategy for anybody who does not have all their multiplication facts memorized. Counting by threes. Ready? Here we go. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30. Counting by fours. Ready? And 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36, 40. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36, 40. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36, 40. Counting by sixes. Here we go. 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, 48, 54, 60. 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, 48, 54, 60. 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, 48, 54, 60. Counting by sevens, here we go. 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42, 49, 56, 63, 70. 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42, 49, 56, 63, 70. 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42, 49, 56, 63, 70. And counting by eights, here we go. 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56, 64, 72, 80. 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56, 64, 72, 80. 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56, 64, 72, 80. Counted by nines, here we go. 9, 18, 27, 36, 45, 54, 63, 72, 81, 90. 9, 18, 27, 36, 45, 54, 63, 72, 81, 90. 9, 18, 27, 36, 45, 54, 63, 72, 81, 90.